Bucs fans, Monday Night Football is right around the corner. Buccaneers will be on the road in week 2 against the Houston Texans. Should be a really good game. I'm going to give you guys a game preview for that upcoming matchup. Also, as we inch closer to kickoff, I'm going to give you guys all the injury updates you need to know about your Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Also, Jamel Dean took a pretty significant pay cut to stick around in Tampa, at least for this year. I'll talk about that. And lastly, I'm going to give you guys my keys to the game. If the Tampa Bay Buccaneers do these 3 things, I believe they'll come out of the Monday Night Football game victorious. All that and more on this episode of Fear the Bay. Welcome back to another episode of Fear the Bay, where your support makes all other 31 teams fear the Bay. I'm your host, Daniel Morales, and before we get started, I just want to give a huge shout out to all my supporters, all you Fear the Bay fans out there. We recently passed 300 subscribers on YouTube, and it might not seem like a lot, but to me it is. Everybody starts off at 0 and you subscribe to yourself, so you really start off at 1 if you do that. But it's a grind to grow and grow and grow, and it's a lot. If you ever made content before, you know how much of a grind it takes, but it's worth it at the end. If you feel like you're making a good product, if you feel like you're putting something out there that you hope people enjoy and that you enjoy doing in the process, that's all you can ask for. But if you've ever thought about making Buccaneers content online, like a podcast or in social media in any aspect, my advice to you would just be do it. Just start it. At this point, I started 15 weeks ago because this is episode number 15. I'm just recording on my phone here. You don't need a professional camera or anything. You just need to know what you're talking about. And you just need to have something to record with, and you just post it online for people to see. And that would be my advice to all you guys out there. Just if you've ever been thinking about it, everybody close to me knows I've always wanted to talk Buccaneers football as a career. And it's not a career yet for me. It just is. I have a full-time job. I'm a dad. I got a lot on my plate. But it's a grind to grow the channel. It's a grind to make content, but it's worth it at the end. It's worth it. And I always look to continue to improve. And this is just the beginning for Fear the Bay also. I have so many ideas of how I want to grow and expand this channel. It's going to be, and this network, this brand, Fear the Bay, that's going to be really, really exciting. You guys are all the original supporters. So I've said this before, but you guys are truly the heartbeat of this channel. If you guys haven't done so already, please like, subscribe, and comment. Share this video with somebody that you know who also is a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan, because that's how we continue to grow this thing to new heights. Just truly thank you guys for all your support. I've loved the community, seeing the community that we've cultivated and built here so far at Fear the Bay. I want to see it continue to grow and grow and grow. So quickly, just want to say thank you to all you guys out. All right, so let's get into this week 2 matchup for the Buccaneers. The Buccaneers are going to be on the road for the second week in a row against the Houston Texans. This is a fun AFC South versus NFC South matchup. It might be also the last time that Mike Evans gets to play in Houston, Texas, so close to his hometown, Galveston, Texas. So I know he's going to have a lot of family and friends out there. That's going to be exciting for him. I think he goes 13 straight 1K yard seasons and calls it a career. I don't think he has anything left to prove, but getting more and more yards and more touchdowns, that can only help him out becoming a first ballot Hall of Famer. Incredible guy, incredible player, and it's going to be really fun to see him his final time in Houston. But the Buccaneers, we know historically they don't do so well in primetime games. I think it's going to be a different outcome this time around, though, in week number 2 for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Last week, the Buccaneers won. They survived. It was a sloppy, gritty, hard-to-watch game against the Atlanta Falcons, but they came out with the victory. Remember the wild Younghoe Koo missed field goal? He's now been benched, at least for week 2. He's been benched. Younghoe Koo has. Might be an end of an era for the Atlanta Falcons and Younghoe Koo. But after that missed field goal, Baker Mayfield was able to get into victory formation, take the knee, end week number 1 with a victory. For the Houston Texans, who the Buccaneers are going to be going up against this week, they lost week number 1. So this is going to be their home opener in NRG Stadium in week number 2. They lost week number 1. They were in Los Angeles against the LA Rams. They lost 9-14. The offense scored 0 points. So that was rough for them. They kind of had a little bit of movement on the offensive line, similar to how the Tampa Bay Buccaneers had movement. If you remember, before the game against the Atlanta Falcons, we got breaking news that the offensive line was going to be reshuffled around. They moved center Graham Barton, for last year's first-round pick out of Duke, all the way over to left tackle. So your left tackle was Graham Barton. He played tackle at Duke, so it wasn't anything, out of the ordinary for him. At left guard, they elevated Michael Jordan from the practice squad to play left guard. And then center, they had Ben Bredesen move over from left guard over to center. Right side of the line stayed the same with right guard Cody, right tackle Luke. So they had to kind of reshuffle the offensive line, because their right guard, Ed Ingram, was out. Their veteran right guard, Ed Ingram, was out for that game. He's been dealing with an abdomen injury. So they also traded for him this offseason from the Minnesota Vikings. They traded in exchange a next year 2026 6th-round pick to get Ed Ingram. So they have their original offensive line unit that they had throughout the offseason, training camp, and the preseason. Those guys are going to be back together now. So I think, both teams had a little bit of movement on the offensive line. I think the Buccaneers, they did a good job in the pass protection, keep making sure that Baker Mayfield was kept upright, only gave up 1 sack, for against the Atlanta Falcons. But they struggled in the run blocking aspect of their duties. Baker Mayfield led the team with 39 rushing yards. Bucky Irving had 14 carries for 37 yards, 0 touchdowns, 2.6 yards per carry. That was really bad to see there. But the Houston Texans kind of had the opposite. So they did bad in pass protection, but they did good in run blocking. So CJ Stroud went 19 for 27, had 188 yards, 0 touchdowns, 1 interception. He had a 45.1 QBR quarterback rating, and he got sacked 3 times. In total, he lost 37 yards with those sacks. Really, really bad there. I know for 2 of them, D'Amico Ryans believes that CJ Stroud could have stepped up in the pocket to avoid those. I don't know. I think D'Amico Ryans is trying to make sure he doesn't throw his offensive line underneath the bus. And he knows CJ Stroud is a good guy. He has a clear head. He has a good head on him. And he could take that criticism and he could use it to improve his game moving forward. But they did good in the run blocking, though. So Nick Chubb had a light game, only 13 carries for him, but they want to get him the ball more. They want to get him more involved. I'll talk about that later on in my keys to the game. But he had 13 carries for 60 yards, 4.6 yards per carry. Longest run was at 13 yards. In total, the Houston Texans had 27 carries for 114 yards, average 4.2 yards per carry. So these teams did the opposite. The offensive line for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, good in pass protection, not so good in run blocking. For the Houston Texans, bad in pass blocking. There was one point where they had 3 offensive linemen to focus on Jared Verse, the edge rusher, the dominant edge rusher for the LA Rams. They were blocking him. There's 3 guys focused on one guy. I don't think you could do that against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with Kalijah Kancey, Vita Vea on the inside, Yaya Diaby, Hassan Reddick on the outside. I don't think you can focus 3 guys on one. But hopefully they try that if you're a Tampa Bay Buccaneers follower, a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan, and you see the Buccaneers just get to CJ Stroud. All right, so I think this game is honestly going to come down to the offensive coordinators for these 2 teams and how they call these games. So for both these teams, their structure is very, very, very similar. They have head coaches who are defensive head coaches. They're defensive-minded head coaches, and they call the plays, the defensive plays for their respective teams. And their offensive coordinators, well, they're inexperienced guys. They're guys who last week, it was their very first time ever calling plays at the NFL level in a regular season game. So for the offensive side, for the offensive coordinator Buccaneers, we know Josh Broussard is the offensive coordinator. Last week, the Buccaneers were able to score 23 points. But you want to see them come off to a little bit, a faster start. It was a bit sloppy, a bit slow. Josh Broussard going up against a veteran defensive coordinator last week against the Atlanta Falcons. It's not going to get any easier for him because he's going up against D'Amico Ryans this week. For the Houston Texans, it's the exact same formula. Defensive-minded head coach with D'Amico Ryans, and the offensive coordinator is calling his second game this week as well, Nick Haley. So Nick Haley was also one of the guys who the Tampa Bay Buccaneers brought in this offseason to interview for the offensive coordinator position. Remember, Liam Cohen left the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You had the whole ghosting situation where he ghosted the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and he became the head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars. So good for him. But they need to find a new offensive coordinator. Nick Haley, who was with the LA Rams before this year, was with the LA Rams, was with Sean McVay, was the tight ends coach and the pass game coordinator for the LA Rams. He got an interview with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They decided not to go with him. They decided to go internally with Josh Grizzard, who was the third down guy in charge of third downs last year. I remember the Buccaneers had the highest third down win rate also last year as well. I believe it was somewhere around 51%. So they did really good in third downs because of Josh Grizzard, but also because of the execution of Baker Mayfield and the offensive players. But yeah, I think it's going to come down to those two young guys. Josh Grizzard going up against DeMeco Ryans, calling a good game, calling a game where Baker Mayfield can get into it quickly. And for the Houston Texans, they're hoping that Nick Haley can go up against Todd Bowles and have a successful game against him. I would take in this one, I would take Josh Grizzard versus, DeMeco Ryans, and Josh Grizzard getting the upper hand in that one just because of the offensive talent this team has. Nick Haley has a lot of offensive players, a lot of offensive young talent on his team. But he also has a lot of injuries he's dealing with in week number 2. So, for example, their starting center for the Houston Texans, Jake Andrews, he's out for this game with a high ankle sprain. So that's bad. Anytime your starting center is out, especially when he has to go up against Vita Vea, who DeMeco Ryans has said himself, this defense for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, it all starts up front with Vita Vea. I would take Vita Vea over anybody, but especially against a second string center, I'm going to take Vita Vea in that matchup to win the majority of those reps. So Jake Andrews, starting center, out. You have center Jarrett Patterson in. CJ Stroud calls him slime. The thing is with Patterson, he has basically a whole year of experience. He has 16 career starts with the Houston Texans. He had 7 in 2023. He had 9 last year in 2024. This is his very first start, so it's going to be his 17th start in the NFL. They also lost their backup tight end, Kate Stover. He's out with a broken foot, horrible injury there. Ed Ingram, we talked about him. He's back. He had an abdomen injury. He's back for this game. Christian Kirk, their wide receiver, one of their starting wide receivers, he's out. Remember, they traded for him with the Jacksonville Jaguars. He had a broken collarbone last year. Horrible injury. This year, luckily, it's not a broken collarbone for Christian Kirk. It is a hamstring injury that's preventing him, that's keeping him out from this week 2 matchup against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. All right. Also, they're missing their starting punt returner, Braxton Berrios. He's out with a hamstring as well. He doesn't get too many snaps on offense. He's basically primarily a special teams guy, but you just don't have another wide receiver. You're already down Christian Kirk. You're down Braxton Berrios also. So for Nick Haley, he has a lot of offensive guys out. He's also going against Todd Bowles, who is a mastermind on the defensive side. DeMeco Ryans is it also, but Todd Bowles is at a different level, I believe. Also, for this defense, for this Houston Texans defense, we want Josh Grizzard to be able to start off with Baker Mayfield a lot quicker than they did last week. For this Houston Texans defense that they're playing against, it's going to be a tough defensive back. We know they have Will Anderson and Hunter as your premier edge rushers, but their backfield is really, really talented as well. When you combine the interceptions from their 2 outside corners, including Derek Stingley Jr., who's making $30 million a year. When you combine the 2 outside starting corners interceptions last year, when you combine their 2 starting safeties interceptions last year also, they had 19 combined interceptions. This is a ball-hawking secondary that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Mike Evans, Baker Mayfield, and Emeka Egbuka are going to go up against. Now, here's the thing though. Their nickel corner, Petrie, he had a horrible game against Puka Nacua in the slot. So Puka Nacua was able to eat Petrie for that game. Puka Nacua had 11 targets, 10 receptions, 130 yards. He was PFF's highest graded wide receiver last week. He had a 91.6 week 1 PFF grade. And Matthew Stafford, going up against this defensive backfield, had a 92.9 PFF grade, the highest last week for any quarterback in week number 1. So they have a very talented defense, but last week they were able to be exploited by this LA Rams offense, especially Puka Nacua. I would look for Emeka Egbuka in the slot to have a very good game. We know they're going to try to get rid of Mike Evans, try to double team him, try to minimize his impact on this team. I think that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to want to target Baker Mayfield is going to want to target Emeka Egbuka in the slot, going up against Petrie, and I think he's going to have a very good game. Let's get down to our 3 headlines. Bucs fans, want to know how you can help this channel, Fear the Bay, continue to grow and expand? Well, all you have to do are 3 simple things, and they're absolutely free. And what are those things, you might be asking? Well, like, subscribe, and comment. Like, subscribe, and comment. When you do that, when you engage with the content, what happens is YouTube's algorithm continues to push this content out to more phenomenal Bucs fans like yourself. So please, if you have not done so already, like, subscribe, and comment. Those things help me out tremendously, and they help our channel, they help our community continue to grow and grow and grow and expand to brand new heights. Let's get back to the video. We definitely do not want to miss that. All right, let's get into the injuries this week for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They had 5 guys on the injury report, but the biggest news was that the Buccaneers got Chris Godwin Jr. and Tristan Wirfs back at practice this week. So they're not going to be playing this week. We know Chris Godwin Jr. is coming back from that dislocated ankle injury that he suffered all the way last year, back in week number 7 against the Baltimore Ravens. And Tristan Wirfs out with that bone injury in his right knee. They're both out, but it's a very positive sign to see both of those guys back out there on the practice field. And slowly, this is now the ramp-up period where you slowly build them back, work with them, and you can get them back on the field at some point this season, sooner rather than later. I think Tristan Wirfs' time frame is probably week 3 to week 5. Remember, week 3, he said himself, is a maybe. I know that the Buccaneers, their goal is to get him back by week number 5. I think possibly this comes down to, do the Buccaneers start off 2-0? Because the Houston Texans, if they're able to beat the Houston Texans, go off to the home opener week number 3 against the New York Jets. I like the Buccaneers over the Jets. You know, I think they're the much more talented team. I think if they go 2-0, maybe you sit them out for one more week if the offensive line looked good enough. And you get him ready for that week 4 game against the Philadelphia Eagles. So let's see what they do with him. But he's very close. He's much closer to Chris Godwin Jr. Coming back to the football field. For Chris Godwin Jr., I think probably his time frame is week 5 to week 7, somewhere around that. I know Ian Rappaport believes that the team believes that he might be back for week number 5, but I believe week 5 to week 7, somewhere in that time frame is when you can see Chris Godwin Jr. back out there on the football field. So it's going to be good to see Mike Evans, Emeka Egbuka, and Chris Godwin out there. All right, so Luka Decky was out with a foot injury this week. He was out for two practices, came back for this final practice on Saturday. He's questionable. I think he's going to be okay. I think he's going to be out there. It's very similar to what happened last week with Vita Vea and his foot injury, but he's back out there. He was back out there. I believe he's going to be a go for this week for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Christian Izien, he was out week number 1. He suffered an oblique injury. Remember, it was a pain tolerance issue. He's questionable this week. I believe he most likely plays this week. He provides a lot of versatility for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense. Todd Bowles can basically use him anywhere, at nickel, any of the 2 safety positions if he needs him. If they're in a pickle and they need to put him at outside cornerback. We've seen this before where he plays outside corner, and he was able to help the Tampa Bay Buccaneers survive a game. So, it's a very versatile piece. He's not going to be starting, of course, but it's very good to have him just in case one of your guys go down. He's in there. He's a versatile player. He just does whatever you need him to do. Christian Izien, he's one of my favorite players on this team. He does his job. That's why he's one of my favorite players. All right. Also, very positive news, Benjamin Morrison. Benjamin Morrison was questionable this week, and he's been dealing with that soft tissue injury. But it looks like he's going to be able to go back out there on the football field finally in a regular season game. He's going to get some reps. So now the plan is, because you have Jamel Dean and Zyon McCollum all healthy, you have Jacob Parrish healthy also in the nickel position. The plan, as Todd Bowles said, get him reps on special teams. So he's going to be primarily a special teams player in week number 2. And they're going to give him some snaps, however, on defense. So he's going to get mostly special team snaps, but he's going to get some defensive snaps as well. So they're going to get his feet wet a little bit. But very encouraging overall. Not too many guys on the injury report. And it looks like Luka Decky, Christian Izien, and Benjamin Morrison will be playing. We know Chris Godwin Jr. and Tristan Wirfs going to be out. But very encouraging that those 2 guys will be back soon. Possibly both of them potentially by week number 5. Both of them might be back. But definitely before the bye week, I would say both of those guys would be back out there on the football field and producing a lot of positive stats and a lot of positive production for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Let's get to our next headline. So this week we got breaking news that Jamel Dean accepted a pay cut by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This news was broken by Josh Capo. He's an incredible guy. So if you're not doing so already, go over to X and follow at Josh_Capo, Queipo. He's a great guy. Everything that has to do with, he's a leader of contract Twitter, also one of the leaders of #contract Twitter. But he's one of the guys who, anytime that there's a contract that gets signed between the front office of the Buccaneers and a player, or anything with the salary, anything with contract, I'm refreshing his screen. I'm refreshing his X account to see what are his opinions on this and how close was he, because a lot of times he projects these contracts and he's pretty spot on. A lot of times he hits the bullseye of these. But he broke the news here that Jamel Dean has accepted a pay cut. So he was set to make about $12.5 million. We know that the Buccaneers also just gave the 3-year, $48 million contract extension to Zion McCollum, making out $16 million per year. It's a really good deal with him. But Jamel Dean was set to make $12.5 million in 2025. Now his salary goes down from $12.5 million to $4.2. That's the new base, $4.25 million. He has playtime incentives possibly in the contract now that can push him up to a max of $5 million this year. So, wow, he accepted a pay cut that dropped him from $12.5 million to $5 million. And of course, you know that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they drafted 2 cornerbacks in the draft, second round pick Benjamin Morrison, who is now coming back this week. Again, Todd Bowles says he's going to play primarily special teams, but they are going to give him some snaps at outside corner on defense. So let's see how he does in a real NFL game. I wouldn't overreact if he does so good or he does too good or too bad. This is his first time ever out there at the NFL level. Let's see how he does. And he's going up against a good quarterback in CJ Stroud. But he's going to be being pushed now by Benjamin Morrison throughout this entire season if both of them stay healthy for that starting outside corner position. And Jamel Dean had a very funny quote about why he took the $8 million pay cut. He said, "I'm not in the mood to try to figure out a whole new team and city and go through all I went through my rookie year." So he takes a pay cut. He wants to stick around in Tampa. And that's also a credit and kudos to Jason Light, Todd Bowles, this entire front office, for the way that they built this locker room, the team that they built, where you could tell a guy, do you want to take an $8 million pay cut? It's up to him. And he accepts that pay cut rather than being traded somewhere else. Now, here's the thing, though. So he accepts a pay cut with the opportunity to become a free agent next year. So we had to see what happens. Does he go out next year? Does somebody overpay him or give him a big contract somewhere else? We saw that with, for example, Carlton Davis III with the New England Patriots. Carlton Davis, just like Jamel Dean, often injured, but he's making $18 million, more than Zion McCollum is with the New England Patriots. So this gives Jamel Dean the opportunity to, assess all his options in the offseason. See, does he want to stick around in Tampa? If he sticks around in Tampa, he might be the CB3. He might be the backup corner to Benjamin Morrison and to Zion McCollum. One of them goes down, he comes in. Is he okay with that at this point in his career? Or does he want to go out and learn a new defense, learn a new city, like he said, learn a new team and their locker room and how they do everything to make more money? So it's going to come down to how he feels at the end of the year and how he's doing. But overall, another really good deal for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, getting Jamel Dean to accept the pay cut, $8 million pay cut. And he gets to stick around in Tampa for the remainder of this year. Let's see if he's possibly a trade candidate later on in the year. But given what he said, that he doesn't want to go learn a new city, and given the fact that he accepted this, I would hope that the Buccaneers respect his wishes and not trade him and give them that opportunity to enter free agency this offseason. Let's get now to our keys to the game. Let's close out the show with the keys to the game. The Buccaneers do these 3 things. I think they come out week number 2. They fly back from Houston to Tampa, all happy because they came back with a victory. So I think you got to get the run game going. So this falls on the offensive line. This falls on Bucky Irving and any of the running backs who are running the ball, and also on Josh Grizzard. You have to get the run game going. Again, last week, Baker Mayfield, your quarterback, was the leading rusher on this team with 39 rushing yards. Now, a lot of those who were scrambling, the Atlanta Falcons were playing really tight coverage, really tight defense. There was nowhere for him to go. He just decided to go out there, run, scramble, get the first down, get extra yardage. D'Amico Ryans called him a squirrel. So they said, he has a great arm, but he's a squirrel. We got to get the squirrel down. We got to get him down. So that was really a really funny quote there. But you got to get the run game going, because if you get the run game going, then whenever you do play action, when you do these boots, whenever you do any of the motions, any of that stuff, the defense, that's bait that they take more often, versus knowing that you're just going to be passing because of the fact that you can't run the ball. So, I don't want to see another game where Bucky Irving has 14 carries, 37 yards. I don't think, averaging 2.6 yards per carry. I don't think that really falls on him. We'll see if that's a trend throughout the entire year. I think it falls more on the makeshift offensive line that the Buccaneers had out there in week number 1. Again, they did good in the pass protection aspect of their duties, but they didn't do a good job run blocking. So again, key number 1, got to get the run game going early and often. You want to be able to depend on the run game and then play off of the run game, having play action, having movement, doing stuff that baits the defense in, and you're able to beat the defense for nice chunk plays down the field. All right. Now, on the opposite side is stick with the running game. You got to stop Houston's run game. So Joe Mixon, he is out. He's on NFI. He's on the NFI list. So he's going to be out for the first 4 games of the year. But Nick Chubb, at least the first 4 games. Nick Chubb is their RB1 with Joe Mixon being out. And we know Nick Chubb, he was injured for the past 2 years in 2024 and 2023 with the Cleveland Browns. That's what ended his career there with the Cleveland Browns. But D'Amico Ryans, Nick Haley, they talked about it. They don't just want to get, honestly, real quick, Nico Collins, he barely got targeted. He had 5 targets, 3 receptions, 25 yards. He is a very important part of their offense. They're definitely going to want to target him. So Zion McCollum needs to do a good job minimizing his impact. But they definitely want to give carries to Nick Chubb. They want to get him more involved in this offense. So look out for Nick Chubb in week number 2. They want to get him going. They gave him 13 carries. He got 60 yards last week. They probably want to get him 20, 21, 22 carries this week. So they want to bulk up his load, maybe give him a few, check downs, a few receptions out of the backfield. But bodes well overall if you have Todd Bowles leading your defense, because the Buccaneers communications team, they put this out to the media recently. So since 2019, the Buccaneers, under Todd Bowles, have allowed the fewest rushing yards in the entire league. So they've been the best team since 2019 against the run. They allowed the fewest rushing yards allowed. That is 9,447 yards allowed. The fewest yards per rush. So the average yard per rush against this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team since 2019 is 3.69 yards. And then the fewest rushing touchdowns allowed with 69 touchdowns. So since 2019, with Todd Bowles at the helm as defensive coordinator at first and then as head coach, which he basically is still a defensive coordinator because he calls the plays, the Buccaneers have been the best team against the run. And that needs to continue this week because the Houston Texans, Nick Haley, they want to get this run game going with Nick Chubb getting more and more and more carries, getting him more involved. Vita Vea working against Jarrett Patterson, a second string offensive lineman, a second string center. They need to make sure that they dominate the run game, that they don't allow the Houston Texans to run on them and Nick Chubb to have a great game. All right, lastly, it comes down to making your kicks. This is for Chase McLaughlin, right? So Riley Dixon, I think he did an incredible job last week. Cam Johnson, he won a NFC Special Teams Player of the Week. He did a really good job in the return game, having his 54-yard return. But Chase McLaughlin, he missed a field goal attempt. He missed an extra point attempt. So he dropped the Buccaneers 4 points. He lost the Buccaneers 4 points with those missed kicks. We saw how important last week the kicking game is when you had Younghoe Koo miss that field goal so the Buccaneers could win the game. He didn't do it so the Buccaneers could win the game, but because of that, the Buccaneers won the game, was able to take the knee. Baker Mayfield take the knee, escape Atlanta with a victory. So again, you got to get the run game going with Bucky Irving. Baker Mayfield cannot be your leading rusher again. You got to get the run game going. You got to make sure this offensive line, this falls on the offensive line, it falls on Bucky Irving, it falls on Josh Grizzard. Find a way to get the run game going. So the Houston Texans have a good defense, but the middle with Sheldon Rankins and Mario Edwards Jr., they're not the best of defensive tackles. They're journeyman defensive tackles. They've been around the league. They've been around 4 or 5 different teams. So they've been with the New Orleans Saints also, Sheldon Rankins. So, you got to take advantage of the middle of that defensive line. You got to be able to run on them. All right, you got to stop the run too. Again, Nick Chubb is going to get more carries this week. They want to get him more involved. You got to be able to stop Nick Chubb, eliminate him from this game. Make sure he gets no more than like 50 yards, 60 yards, not have a 100-plus yard game. And lastly, Chase McLaughlin has to make his kicks. We can't do the same thing last week where he's missing. He's dropping the Buccaneers 4 points because every single point matters, especially in probably what will be a close, tight game. But overall, I have the Buccaneers winning this game. I think they're going to come out a little bit faster. I would hope so, being the fact that they've already had one game underneath their belt. That rest is a little bit more off. But I think they come out with the victory. And I think it's going to be a better overall game for all 3 phases of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And they come out with victory in prime time, on Monday Night Football, with the victory. So let's see what happens. But my prediction is the Buccaneers come out on top. Thank you for watching. Guys, thank you so much for watching this video. That Houston Texans versus Buccaneers game on Monday Night Football should be an incredible game to watch. I love the fact that football is back. The weather outside is feeling a little bit better too here in Tampa. You're getting hints of that breeze, hint of that fall breeze. But overall, thank you guys for watching. If you have not done so already, please like, subscribe, and comment. Remember, that helps out the algorithm, helps push this content out to more Tampa Bay Buccaneers fans like yourself. Also, share this video with somebody that you know who also is a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan. Let's continue to grow Fear the Bay together. You can do your part by subscribing, sharing as well. Guys, thank you so much. Let's see how this game goes for the Buccaneers in week number 2. Do they start off 2-0? Let's see. Only time will tell. Thank you guys for watching. I'm your host, Dan Morales, signing out.